The G1 was designed to replace manual pulling. When we were on a job site, we observed that there were a lot of people pulling in rope by hand, doing small cable pulls by hand, and we started investigating why they were doing that. We discovered there really wasn't a good solution for it. They needed to find a solution that was small, it was easy to carry, it was portable, so you can take it up on a scissor lift. You could use it where there isn't power if you're pulling and lighting in a parking lot. The G1 is a really good solution when you're doing small branch pulls for lighting and wiring. It's really great when you're setting up a large run. And then the big part of it is today when you're doing, let's say, branch circuits, you're going to be using a fish tape and then you're going to pull the wire through and then you're really pulling that wire in by hand. And although you may be going as fast as you can, the pull that you do at 8 a.m. is never going to be the same speed as it is at 3 p.m. because you're slowing down due to fatigue over the course of the day. So when you're using the G1, on top of it being faster, you're actually going to get more consistent pulls. So your pull's going to be the same speed whether it's first thing in the morning or your last pull of the day. Regardless of whether you're in a commercial market, an industrial market, or utility market, there's always conductors, there's always cable around. So whether you're pulling in small cables, it really doesn't matter where you are, and it can even be used for pulling in large rope. The roller goes up to 7/8 of an inch, so you can pull in really, really large rope instead of doing that by hand when you're setting up for an 1,100-foot pole. So something that you might be pulling in with the G1 is mule tape. So mule tape is a lot stronger than polyline. Pulling line is usually rated up to about 200, 210 pounds. Mule tape goes all the way up to 2,500 pounds or higher. One of the big benefits of using mule tape is that you don't have to worry about the line snapping. Since the G1 can do up to 1,000 pounds of peak pulling force, you don't have to stop and get a puller like you may need to if you were pulling by hand. When people are pulling by hand, typically they're doing anywhere from 20 pounds of force up to 100. When we were developing the product, one of the hardest specs for us to identify was how hard this needed to pull. When we talked to customers, they basically said it needs to pull as hard as 2 men. So to put that into perspective, 2 people pulling as hard as they can could be 400 or 500 pounds, which is what they were doing by hand before. So the fatigue from doing that is completely eliminated when you use the G1. The G1 is something that honestly everybody can use. When we initially developed it, we were looking at it being an option for large contractors, people that are really focusing on doing either a lot of big pulls to use for setup or people who are pulling in lighting. But actually when we got it out there and got it in front of users, we even had residential contractors who couldn't afford a puller and didn't have the use case to buy a puller that got excited when they saw the G1 because it's now something they can afford to help them with their job on a day-to-day basis. And on the flip side, we've had contractors who want to buy 50 of them and make sure everybody on the team has one so they never have to pull by hand again.